Well, hello again. Last time we left off where I was going to fill in this gap all the way along here, and as you can see, it filled in very nicely. So no more space there. Looks really good. It's kind of hard messing with a cabinet that's this old because the wood has really shrunk up a lot, and you know, nothing's exactly the way it was, and I don't think the quality of the cabinet build was very good anyway. Example being, look at here. Look at that big old, this plywood sticks out beyond the edge of the top. They left this space right here. But you know, this was mass production. These were not individually hand built, okay? So you have to expect something like this. So what do we do about that? Just let it go? Or, well, I could. Nobody would ever notice it, but I think what I'm going to do, this is the some of the wood I took off the top. It went this way. That's the way we're going to have to put our new veneer on also. It'll have to go in this direction. And I'm thinking maybe I can cut a couple of triangles like that. Cut a couple triangles out of there like that and put one on top of another. Maybe glue them one on top of another and bring it out a little bit. That's something you don't really want to fill that in with, you know, wood putty or anything like that. And that's tacky, you know. Try to do it the right way if you decide to do it. And I've decided to do it. So let me see what I can do. I'm just going to take the old scissors. I got plenty of wood to work with. I got a pile of it that I took off. It's always good to keep this stuff, by the way. You never know when you're going to need it. Like right now. Let me see what I can do. And the back part is a little rough. Of course, it doesn't matter much. I'll be putting some of that wood filler, that, what do they call it, stuff? I can't never remember the stuff. Constantine's, yeah. I'm going to be putting some of the Constantine paste wood filler over the top anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So let me see what I can do. The old veneer splits apart as soon as you cut it with a pair of scissors, and this is going to cover most of that sunk in spot there. First I'm going to put a little glue, then I'm going to put it in there and then clean up as much glue as I can and try to find a little piece down here that might fill in the rest of it. We shall see. It will bend to my will. Well, that turned out pretty darn good, I'd say. You know, every time I cut it, it would just split and fall to pieces on the table down here. You can see all the little pieces. It was very difficult to mess with, but a pair of tweezers finally pulled me through. And it's all glued in, and we're going to let that dry now. It's glued, ready to go with old Elmer's glue. It'll take about maybe an hour or so. Meanwhile, what we'll do is we'll see what we can do about measuring, marking, and cutting a piece of veneer for our top, our iron-on veneer. Let's see what we can do with that. From experience, I know that the first thing we have to do is get rid of this paper type glue type stuff they have here. We need a straight edge to work with, and I've cut it across here and it's not very straight, but this is the edge we're going to be working with because this straight edge is going to be in the front up here. And whichever you know, wood grain looks the best, I'll trim either this edge with a pair of scissors, or I'll trim this. I'm just talking about this glue stuff here. So let me figure that out, and I'll get back. Well, I decided to heck with that. It's too difficult to work with. We're going to cut this baby down to size, and I have marked it. I've got it overlapping pretty far on both sides. So all I got to do is cut it straight across, and that'll get rid of all this other crap. Then we can do something. Now we have it down to a size we can deal with. Now this is the straight edge along here, and I have plenty of overlap, about a ½ inch on the rear, on both sides, none in the front because I want this straight edge to be my guide. Back here we've got another ½ inch. You want that overlap because sometimes when you cut this stuff with a pair of scissors, it has a tendency to split on you, and the edge will become ragged. Well, if it becomes ragged, not a problem, because you've got plenty of overlap. You can just cut that ragged edge off, okay? So what do we do now? Well, right now I'm going to trim it again, get it down as close as I can, but still have some overlap. The last bit of overlap after you've glued it all down, or, you know, ironed it all down, the last bit of overlap is taken care of with a sanding block. Whether it be a rubber block or whatever, you just keep sanding and sanding, and it'll finally get down to the edge on both sides and the rear. It's a tedious process, but you know, if you're going to do it, then do it. You know, do it right. All right, let's see what I can do here. Next, I have marked. I have put it in, you know, the right position. Then I marked it right here with a pencil, and right here with a pencil. And now I'm going to take a straight edge. I'm going to mark that from one side to the other, and then I'm going to trim it. But I'll still have a little bit of overhang, okay? And then the next thing we'll do is the other side, same way, and then we'll trim along the back, same way. So let me trim this and see what happens. Now, have I made mistakes in the past where I had to completely start all over? Yes. We do not worry about such things. We are making progress. As you'll notice, we just have a little bit of overhang now on both sides. Now what we have to do is cut the back. We got to mark the back and cut the back off. It's got quite a bit of overhang back here. We'll go ahead and nibble it off. Oh, I guess we'll cut it off right about in this area here. Mark it on both sides, do a straight line, and cut that. Okay, now look, one more thing on this. So once you determine what straight edge on the side of the veneer that you're going to use, this is the straight edge, you know, at the factory where they made it. Don't trim this front edge. This is your straight edge. This is your guide. You trim the other three sides. Cut down, trim, trim, trim. So leave this one the way it is. This will always be right there, always be ready to glue. Now what I'm going to do now is I've got it, I got the back trim just a little bit, and the sides, and what I'm going to do is pull this over to it's just about hanging over the edge on one side. Then I'll just have to trim the other side only, okay? You don't need to keep going back and forth, trimming and trimming. That's dumb. Get it lined up to where you want it, using this as your straight edge as your guide. Then go ahead and trim one edge. Usually you trim the edge that's the most crooked. You know, this thing here looks pretty crooked, see it? It goes back and it gets a little wider toward the rear. This side here is not too bad. I'll probably wind up trimming this side maybe, I don't know. But I'm right-handed, so it'd be easier to trim this one without making a mistake. So let's do the next part. It takes a long time to do this. If you're going to do it, like I said, do it right. Now, this is the way I do it, okay? There's a lot of guys out there that are a lot smarter than I am, and they know how to do it differently, so that's fine. This is the way I do it. After lining it up the way I want it, I've discovered I have to take off this much on both sides. A little more than a half an inch. So let's trim it on down. I may come down just a little bit. You know, you got to kind of be cautious about this. Don't just cut it and say, I cut too much, too much. Well, you know, nibble it. We're in the nibbling stage right now. So I may cut a little bit on this side of the line instead of right at the line. So, you know, I can always cut it again. We're down to our last nibble, and as I've always said in the past, for those of you who have watched my videos over the years, when you get toward the end, that's when to slow down. Don't speed up. And, you know, this is very critical now. We've got everything the way we want it except for this last cut. And I got to mark it and cut it. And then, you know, it's just a matter of measuring 40 times, cutting once. Got it? Got it. Well, that's it. We have just a tad of overhang on the right, just a tad of overhang on the left, same with the rear, just enough, because we'll sand that down with a sanding block to where it meets the wood. And then I even arranged to have just a little bit of overhang on the front. Not much, maybe the thickness of a couple pieces of paper on the front, okay, because you'll be sanding that down also. The grain looks nice and even, looks nice and straight. Let me check it out. Yeah, it's going to look really nice across there, okay? Just a little bit of overhang, not much. Now what we have to do is, the most important thing to do right now is to get a cup of coffee. I can't believe we actually survived that. If I get too much of it in a hurry without my cup of coffee, and I got my shakes and everything, we don't want that. The coffee calms me down. It's just the opposite of most people. So I'll be back with the iron all plugged up and ready to go. I'm ready to rock and roll. Now it's advisable to use an iron that has a Teflon bottom. If you have any black crap, any kind of stains or anything, the stuff that's been picked up on the bottom of the iron, it will transfer to your veneer and put black marks on it, brown marks, all kinds of junk. Whatever you have on here is what's going to go on there. So you want a nice clean bottom, if possible, of Teflon. And if you can, you know, you can usually pick up a decent iron at like Goodwill or a flea market or something for like just a few bucks. And if you think the bottom is Teflon and it's cleanable, then go ahead and pick it up for $2-3. You never know when you're going to need it. Now, you do this, no steam. Do not use steam. So this will go up to right about there, almost to max. You want it to be hot because you want to get on, get the glue melted, and then move the iron. We're gonna iron the front first, just maybe an inch or two. Get that iron on down, and that'll anchor it. Last check, make sure you still have your overlap. Then we'll be sanding that down to where it meets right up with the wood, the plywood. So as soon as it gets hot enough, I'm just going to press it on down and get the first 2 inches. Then I can remove this can and slowly work my way back. Slowly work my way back. Now you don't have to leave it on there for 2.5 hours and burn the wood up, okay? And you don't want to leave it on there, you know, not enough time to melt the glue. It's one of those judgment things. You'll be able to tell. It gets pretty hot pretty quick. It's not very thick. As soon as this thing is hot, I'm going to slap it to it. And one more thing before we put the iron to it. If you don't put it on long enough, it's not a problem. As long as it sticks it down enough, you can just go back over it and melt it down. If you put it on there way too long and vaporize the glue, you're out of luck, okay? All right, I think she's hot enough. Should be hot enough to do the trick. Let's see if I can get it to go down at least a couple of inches so I can show you here. Keep your iron moving, don't leave it in one spot. It's already beginning to melt the glue. You can feel it. You don't have to press real hard. That should do it. That should do it for anchoring the front edge. Yeah, it's really hot. Okay, final sweep. There she is. Now after it cools, I'll go around and check each of the corners and make sure they've been glued down the way they're supposed to be. Now I hope you all learned something from that. If not, well, if you got a better idea, use it, okay? While this thing is cooling down, and I'll give you another way that I have used to, you know, put on small patches. I've never used it quite this big here. I've used it for smaller patches. Take Elmer's glue, you put it on the surface you want to put it on, you paint it, sand the surface down to where the Elmer's glue will grip, and then go ahead and put your Elmer's glue on it, tape it off so you don't get it all over the place. Paint it on with a small paintbrush, smooth it out real nice and let it dry. And then on the back of the veneer, you cut it a little bit larger than it's supposed to be. You go ahead and put your Elmer's glue on it as well, very thin. Let it dry completely. Now both of these are dry. Now you put them together, one on top of the other, and hit it with the iron, and the glue will melt and fuse together just like what you saw right here. It's very difficult to cut veneer that has no glue capability on the back. It'll split and everything else. But the glue, the iron-on type veneer prevents that because it has that layer of glue back there, and it just doesn't split very easily. Splits a little bit, but not enough that you ruin the piece. She has cooled down enough. We've got a little bit of overlap along the back here, and just like it is all the way around. Now comes the hard part, really. Sanding it down, slow and easy like, with usually a piece of wood works a lot better with sandpaper around it, better than these blocks. But now on this type of deal, the blocks work better, because all you got to do is sand it back and forth until it's down flush with the cabinet. It doesn't take very long. This veneer sands very easy. Look at that, I'm already down to the cabinet right there. So let me finish this up, and then I'll do the front as well, and then all we have to do is mess with the sides. But she's nice and secure on there. I'm a happy camper so far. All the edges are sanded, nice and straight, looks real good. And everything's glued on, but something happened. I'm glad it did because I wanted to show it to you. Right here, all of this is glued down. Now sometimes the glue on the back of this stuff is thinner in spots. And it causes it not to adhere to whatever it is you're ironing it to. Now, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a bubble right there. There's a bubble all through here. And what I'm going to do, here, I'm going to hit it with the heat again, put a little more heat in this area. Maybe I can get it to adhere. I'm going to be highly upset if I can't, because that'll mean I'll have to split it, put some glue in underneath both sides and iron it down, and then sand it down. This is going to be dark anyway when I'm done. I want to make this kind of a real dark, and this kind of a dark, and this a dark, and the rest we're going to kind of go with a mahogany look. I don't know, I haven't quite figured it out yet, but whatever happens up here, get a little bit of extra sanding, whatever. The dark toner, Van Dyke brown they call it, will make it look, you know, it'll cover it right up. It'll look real good though. Well, let's see if I can get that thing ironed down. Another thing that helps cause that bubble is the top is kind of, I guess they call that concave a little bit. It's not perfectly straight across there. Over the years the thing is sunk down, or I guess they may have had something sitting on top and it caused the wood to, and it all just shrinks up and has totally different shapes sometimes. I want to get that thing ironed down there real good in this area here where it's low, and then get this filled in, and then we can go back and finish this video up, and we'll do the staining and the other crap in the next video. Hopefully I'll be able to finish it up next time. The bubble is gone. Let's hope it stays gone. If it lifts up again, I'll have to get out the iron. It's the only thing you can do besides split it, like I said, and put glue underneath and then iron that down, and then fill it in with your paste wood filler. But I think that's going to hold. That low spot, plus there was probably a thin spot. I've had that thin spot before, and I've had to go over it a couple of times. And we went ahead and got this filled in right here. We'll let that dry. It's going to be a while before that dries. Then I'll sand it down. But right now the cabinet doesn't look like much, but you know, we're doing the preparation for the final work. So that's going to be it. Until next time, this is John.